good sound. For the purposes of YouTube, this is just a glass of milk. Just a glass of brown milk. Give me a break, it's like 100. Sup kids, how are you doing today? Welcome, new, old, middle followers. That didn't make sense, none of that made sense, none of this makes sense, and it will continue to not make sense as we proceed forward. It's incredibly warm today, and I am sweltering, but at the same time, I'm doing pretty good. I'm okay. I'm kind of balancing myself and reconvening myself in many, many ways. But I got thinking recently, and I thought, hey, you know who I should talk to? These guys. Do you know why I should talk to? Because I make a podcast on a regular basis, and that seems like the thing to do. We can wander through these thoughts as much as we like, but we will get to the point sooner or later. What was I thinking about? I was thinking about audience, right? I was thinking about you, which is nice, I guess. You're my audience. You're the people which I speak to. And I think about the people who follow me, and I think about the people who look for the stuff I do. I got thinking the other day, I hadn't seen one of these creators I followed, 2 or 3 years ago in a very long time. I hadn't seen any work from them. I hadn't seen any posts of them. And also, I check who views my work because I'm curious. I want to meet other artists. I want to meet like-minded individuals. So I check out that thing. And they hadn't had any social media presence for a very long time. And I thought, I wonder what they're up to. I'm curious what they're up to. I'm curious how they're going about their day-to-day life. Because my day-to-day life has changed a lot in the last 4 or 5 years, dramatically so, I would imagine. In some ways it hasn't changed at all, but in other ways it has changed in dramatic ways. So I thought we should talk about audience. I feel like I've spoken about it before, but I've always spoken about it from a point of view of the work itself, right? The work itself, like the work I'm creating. I recently had a great chat with my friend Kavi, and we were discussing the work you create and who you create work for and how you go about it. And I realized I do that a lot. I talk about how to create work, how to get out of your comfort zone, how to get into your comfort zone, how to establish a comfort zone in the very first place with beanbags and lawn chairs and all those kinds of things and nice milky drinks. But I digress. But okay, I thought, it's interesting audience thought, because I often say, fuck the audience. Okay. So I often say, that was a weird noise. I often say, fuck the audience. And I say this with absolute sincerity. And I don't mean this as an insult to anybody. I love the fact that you're here. I love the fact that you are wanting to listen and talk and engage in a discussion and have these thoughts and follow these topics. So what do I mean when I say that? Well, what I mean is quite clearly just I create things for me, right? That's the first point of contact. I create things for me, I push them out into the world, and I show them to people because on the off chance that someone may find it valuable, useful, or something that they can clutch onto and say, yeah, I really agree with this, or I don't really agree with this. And that's why I create. I create things for the cathartic release which I get from it. So audience kind of comes second, and that's different to how a lot of artists work. It's different to how a lot of artists have to work because they're trying to do it as a full-time job. I would love to be an artist as a full-time job. Sadly, I've never made it that big, and I doubt I will. It's just one of these things. But for a lot of people, especially emerging artists and people starting out, they do a lot of this. They do a lot of this thought of, well, what if? What if I'm not catering to the people around me? What if I'm not looking to the people who already like my stuff and creating stuff which they adhere to and they're on board with? Will I fall off? Will they stop following me? And that's always an interesting one. I review analytics every so often of the work I'm doing. On YouTube, on Instagram, I look at the numbers and I see when I've gained subscribers, when I've gained followers, when I've lost them. And I always find the unfollows more interesting than the follows. The follows make sense, right? I'm still producing work. Occasionally someone's going to see something and they go, hey, I like the guy's style. I like what he's doing. We're gonna follow him. Don't know why he's got a slightly different accent to me, but anything's out. If you can watch me on video right now, I'm just peeling hairs off me because it's so bloody warm. Anyway, and the unfollows are more interesting because I think a lot of the time, a lot of the unfollows are often bot accounts. So that's the first thing. But on YouTube especially, they're deactivations. They're accounts which get closed. So they're not necessarily unfollowing you directly. They're just unfollowing the platform, fed up with the platform, got kicked off the platform, got banned from the platform, whichever it would be. And it can be very demoralizing. It can be demoralizing people. Why did they unfollow? Why did they suddenly stop wanting what I was creating? I'm doing the same thing I've been doing, or I'm creating things in the same way, or maybe you changed your style, but you're still you. You're still giving an authentic experience as a creator to the public. So why would they unfollow, right? And I think the same can be said from an audience perspective. I'm much more cautious these days with the people that I do follow, the people that I look to, and the people which I subscribe to. On one hand, because I think, as recent years have shown, there is a lot of you follow someone and then a few months later you find out something dreadful about them, or you follow someone and a few months later something goes wrong or awry, and you suddenly feel like, nah, maybe not. I've followed people for numerous reasons. Numerous reasons. Such things as too much posting, completely clogging up the feed, the algorithm giving me nothing but them because I'm a new subscriber, so they think that's all I want. Things like never posting, unutilized accounts where they just don't act or do anything anymore. And I'm like, well, okay, I don't need to be involved in that. Maybe they moved on, maybe they changed their views, maybe they no longer create, which is sad, but it's also a fact of life that happens. That's something which kind of goes hands in hands with things. But what I'm saying is I keep that in mind. I keep that in mind when I'm following and looking for work and looking for new things. And I think there's that quote online which is, people who have under 100 subscribers or 100 likes on Instagram, or 100 or 400 or whatever connections within a social media platform. And they say, imagine trying to follow 400 people, right? Imagine trying to deal with 400 people who were interested in your work at any one time. And I think that's a really interesting point, because on one hand I get what it's saying. It's saying, imagine having a room filled with 400 people who want to speak to you. That's kind of terrifying. But in some ways, you're not asking for a room of 400 people on social media. What you're asking for is the view of 400 people who were interested in the first place, to then be able to say, you know what, this is good and this is bad. It's like an instant criticism. It's instant reaction, which gives you some sort of baseline for how to proceed from that point on. I recently had a couple of videos go bigger than I thought they would. I had one which is up to 800 views. Did not expect it to go that large. I had another one which was a perspective one that's up to like 300 views, and I didn't expect to go that large. I got a lot of comments on the one which went to 800, and I thought, this is great. This is engaging with the public, which is exactly what I want from the podcast. It's engaging with the question which I posed, which was exactly what I wanted from the podcast, and it was interesting. But if you were completely unprepared, that could be shocking. That's the viral effect, right? That's the burnout quickly from going from very little audience to a full-blown audience. I passed, I think it was 1,000 followers on Instagram in the last couple of years, and I saw that as a bit of a milestone. I saw it as a milestone because it had taken me a long time to get to that point. And I do still see it as a milestone. I think it's fantastic. There's 1,000 people who are interested in that. There's no way 1,000 people see what I do on a regular basis, but it's nice to know that there's that like base audience, right? The base audience there saying, yeah, you know what, I can give that guy a like. I'm happy to give that guy a like. I think it's why I put so much value on the organic approach of everything, right? And I'm not talking about art and audience, just everything in life. Instant gratification isn't something I crave. And that kind of plays into that whole fear of missing out, FOMO, which I think a lot of people deal with. And I think a lot of people, younger people, deal with more so because they weren't used to a period of time where you had to wait for things. And that's not a a new opinion, by the way. That's a pretty common opinion. But this whole view of reality and the things within it, when I look at things, I desperately want people to enjoy the discovery. I want people to enjoy finding things out on a cadence, finding things out on a, not a prescribed cadence, but just on their own time. If they're people who are invasively investigatory or curious, then of course they're going to find out things quicker. Of course they are. That's what they're built for. That's what their brains are built for, to ask questions, to go in and find out all the details. I'm not one of those people. I'd much rather pose a question, mull on it for a bit, think about it, go out of my way. I'm not sat looking things up because it just doesn't give me a feeling which is good. It just gives me the answer, and I'm like, oh, great, there's the answer. I recently had a conversation about my birthday. I don't actively tell people when my birthday is. I don't go out of my way to. When people ask me, generally don't say. I will occasionally say what the month my birthday is in, but for the most part, if someone's interested or curious, I'm like, work for it, guys. Work for it. Figure it out. It's not that hard. And you'll feel like you've achieved something. You'll feel like you got one up on me because I was being all coy and secretive about it. And now you did one up on me. And I'm like, that's great. I'd love that feeling. I'd love to find out a little bit of information. I love doing a little bit of online sleuthing to find out a little bit of information, which it's not that you're not meant to know. It's just that it's not integral to our interaction at the time. And I do it with projects as well. I'll create a project, create a piece of work, and I'll put it out, and someone will ask me what it's about. And in some ways, I don't want to tell them. I don't. I want them to figure it out themselves. I want them to invest themselves, because watching them pick it apart and puzzle about it gives me immense enjoyment. They say there's no such thing as an altruistic act, and it's true. I think it's true, especially when it comes to creating things, especially when it comes to engaging with people. There's no such thing as a purely altruistic act. I'm doing these things to feed me, to feed my ego, for lack of a better term, to feed my enjoyment about what's going on, and paying attention to detail of one-on-one interactions. I always like to say, when I talk about the podcast, when I talk about creating work, is that I'm trying to engage with you guys one-on-one, right? Like, obviously we're not one-on-one. I'm talking to a group of people at any one time, but I want to get fans, if I can call them fans, or appreciators, which is a better term, on a one-on-one basis. I want to talk to you. I want you to know me a little bit as a person and appreciate what I'm creating. I don't want to get that viral sensation situation, because why would you? Where's the value in that? I guess there's a big value in that. There's the financial value in that. I think a lot about, and someone I'd love to have on the podcast, there's an artist called Karuk, I think, or Karuk. They did that song, and I think I spoke about it before with the podcast with Emma, which was about a fish. It's like, if I were a fish and I caught you, would you say, look at that? Something like that. And they went huge a year or two ago. They got picked up on Instagram as a little sound hook, and it appeared on so many videos because it had a very positive message, and it was very likable, and it was very catchy. It was like a nice little earworm, which got you in. And I think about them a lot because they seemed so young, and I wonder how it impacted them. I wonder how it took their work and their art. Did it change it? Did it alter it? Did it give them what they were searching for when they were first creating work? Or did it diminish that because suddenly they were now a trend, now they were hype, and now they were looking at the world through a different view? I saw an interview recently with Rizzlekicks, who are musicians from the 2000s, or whenever it was, 2000, I'm going to say 2006, 2007, and that may be entirely wrong, do not quote me on that. And they were talking about how they quit music, and they rose to fame with such quick succession that when they got there, they couldn't handle it, they didn't know what to do with it, and they just decided, making music hadn't provided with them what they wanted. They enjoyed making music, and that had been kind of ruined by garnering attention in such a quick sensation fashion. I think it's fear of missing out, but it's also just fear of the world, which sounds like a dramatic statement to make in the middle of the podcast. Because I was having another thought recently about all the content of the world, right? We must know, and I think we must appreciate as a society, that there is too much within the world for us to experience. I was recently talking to a friend about this. There's places within the world I'd love to visit, but I fully accept I'd probably be miserable visiting. Egypt, Asia, Africa. They are places where I would be sensorily overwhelmed if I went on a solo trip, unchaperoned, without coordination. And that's how I like to travel, right? That's how I like to live my life, for lack of a better term. And I'd be sacrificing that for the privilege of traveling to these places. And I think that's something I've just satisfied myself with, right? I've satisfied myself with that feeling and satisfied myself with that reality. And the same can be said with books and films. There are books and films, I get recommended so much stuff. I do. And I love being recommended so much stuff because you see the passion in people's eyes when they recommend something to you and they're telling you about it and they want you to watch it and they're like, you should watch this. And I'm like, okay, cool. I will add it to the list. But I know I'm probably not going to get round to watching a lot of this stuff because I have things I've already wanted to watch. And if something catches my attention and really engages me, sure, I'm going to go on my way and watch it. But a lot of stuff was in the world. Some stuff I've accepted I'm probably never going to get down to watching. I'm never going to have the time. I'm never going to have the attention. And if I don't think I'm going to enjoy it somewhat wholeheartedly, it's not that I don't want to waste the time on it, but I don't want to sacrifice something else which I could have spent the time with. Which is interesting as a thought, because I go see a lot of random things, and I'll engage with a lot of random things. I was at a show the other night, a show which I didn't particularly find that enjoyable, but I was supporting arts and I was supporting friends, and I wanted to see how it played out. So I went and engaged with it. But again, I was on that mode of self-discovery. I was on that mode of finding something out for myself. So when someone else brings me it, I'm like, okay, let's go see, I guess. Let's go see, but I can't promise I'll watch everything in the world, and I can't promise I'll quote everything correctly, and I can't promise that I'll ever read every book. There's a lot of things in the world. Yeah, a lot of things. Which begs the question of, do we need more things? Yeah, this is a thought I've also had. I've had this thought about me touching other mediums. Do I need other things to explore? Should I stay in my lane? Should I stay in my lane for the sake of not cluttering the world with extra stuff? You know, like the podcast. We're probably gonna hit 300 episodes within the next couple of years. That's 300 videos of me with guests talking to other people. If someone comes and finds it now, would they not want to engage because they'd be worried about not seeing the other 299 episodes? That'd be sad. And I'd be sad for them. I'd want them to see them. But at the same time, I wouldn't be disappointed. I'd want them to just engage with what they were interested in. There's so many topics. So many topics. Too many topics in many ways. Not all of them are golden. Some of them are meandering. And I think there's also a level of social interaction which goes with this, right? I'm always more willing to look at something new with someone who's excited about it. If someone brings you something they truly enjoy and truly engage with, they want you to see it. And I'm thinking, okay, cool. Well, let's go see it, but let's go together. Why would I go on my own? I didn't find it in the first place. You found it. You brought me something great. Let's go watch it together. But if you went without me, so be it. The fear of missing out just isn't built into my brain, I guess. I don't know. Maybe that's a me problem. Maybe that's a me issue. Because I think as well it's interesting that, you know, I live where I live. I live in Jersey. Distinctly next to New York. The city which never sleeps, right? The city which never sleeps, so there's always something going on. Always some event. Every single night there's an event, club, people, It's endless. Literally endless. It's an infinity loop of content and creation and culture. That's too much stuff. You can't experience all of New York. It's impossible. The people of New York get surprised by things which happen in New York. That's how culturally shifting it is at any one point in time. But do I feel like when I'm sitting at home, in my comfort zone, doing my thing, do I feel like I'm missing out? And the honest answer is no. And I think the honest answer is no, because I'm very aware that I can't view everything. And I should take the time to just engage with the stuff which I know I enjoy, rather than trying to view everything all the time, everywhere, all at once. Which is a great film, by the way. You should watch it. Terrible idea in this discussion, but when I'm in that situation, I'm start thinking, well, sure, I could have gone out, could have gone to that show, could have got tickets to that gig, could have pushed myself to go to a bar and talk to some strangers, could have done all of that. But instead I took a chance and I watched a film on Paramount Plus, because why not? I was comfortable, had some good food, and I relaxed. And that's the joy of it. And that can feel like a huge challenge, right? That can feel like a huge step. That's the other side of it. We talk about having an audience which is so big. Like, if you have hundreds and thousands of followers, you get millions of views, you get all the likes in the world. That can be very fulfilling, but it can also be very lonely, because it feels like no one's directly engaging. Everything's kind of passing. The virality of it. Your post goes huge and you're getting thousands of views on it, and you're looking at it going, this is great, but no one's following me. No one's engaging with me. I've lost that essence of audience interaction and discussion. So when you step away, it doesn't feel like a big deal. It doesn't feel like a moment of significance, because you're saying to an audience of thousands, hey guys, I need a break. I need to stop. I need to take some time to myself. And sure, you'll be flooded with comments which are like, this is great, embrace your mental health and fix yourself, blah, 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 blah. But when your audience is 100 people, and most of them are friends and family, and you say something like, hey, I might need to take a break, that can feel like a really big task. Because you know you're communicating directly with individuals. You're not communicating with a zeitgeist. You're not communicating with an amorphous blob of online photographs and pictures. Instead, you're communicating one-on-one with human beings who have gotten attached to you and your work. Don't worry, by the way, this isn't me stepping away. It's just a thought I've been having. You know, I haven't been creating as much as I can because I've had some health issues recently, and it's been interesting. It's been interesting to step back and just consider myself, how I interact, how I create work, the audience interaction of it all. Living in a city with so much going on and meeting people who often feel like they're missing out constantly because they're not fully embracing the bounty of city life. And there's times where I think that, but it got me awfully curious of how much of the world and the audience which I have experience a fear of missing out, or are they more along my side of discovery is better? Discovery and incidental creation of audience, one-on-one interaction, and finding new things on your own rather than being fed it. Is that better? Not entirely sure, but I'm probably not going to fix that today. I may never fix it. There's so much time in the world and probably not enough time for me to fix everything. But for now, I'm going to turn the fan back on because, as I said, it's bloody warm. And let us know in the comments below. Let's open up that conversation. I'll talk to you guys later.